Watchmen is one of the most ambitious and confusing new shows on TV. Like, there's these squids, an elephant, and pigs, and a catapult throwing clones on a moon, and there's Lube Man, a meteor, mind control, magic eggs, blue dongs, flashbacks, and twists. Like, what the fuck is going on? But there's also these serious, heavy themes of trauma, and masks, and race in America. And the whole thing's a sequel of sorts to the original 1986 Watchmen, a comic book about superheroes. The new Watchmen is set 30 years later, and its timeline interconnects with the original to reframe the story of heroes in America. So, what happens in the new Watchmen? How does it connect with the comic? And what does it all mean? Here's the basic timeline in the comic. The first masked hero was Hooded Justice in 1938. He inspired the Minutemen, a group of heroes in the 40s. In 1960 came Dr. Manhattan, the only hero with actual superpowers. Manhattan won the Vietnam War, and Vietnam became a state of America. Richard Nixon stayed president for decades. In 77, heroes were banned. Only Manhattan and the brutal comedian could keep working for the government. In 1985, the main story begins. Everyone fears nuclear war with Russia, and the comedian is murdered. A weirdo called Rorschach investigates, along with Dan, aka Night Owl, and Laurie, aka Silk Spectre. Adrian Veidt, a rich, narcissistic genius, attacks New York with a giant psychic squid that looks like an alien as a hoax to convince the world to make peace. And it works. The Cold War ends. Dr. Manhattan kills Rorschach to keep the hoax a secret. Dan and Laurie fall in love. Dr. Manhattan leaves Earth and says nothing ever ends. So that's the original comic. The new show continues the story in 2019 and adds world building about the last 30 years, partly on a website called PTpedia. So in the 90s, Veidt helped real-world actor Robert Redford become president. Redford introduced liberal policies like Redfordations, which gives tax breaks to victims of racial violence. In response, right-wing extremists emerged, like the 7th Cavalry, a group of white supremacists wearing Rorschach's mask. The cavalry works with Cyclops, an offshoot of the Ku Klux Klan. Senator Keene and Police Chief Crawford are secretly Cyclops members, and in 2016 they orchestrated an attack on police called White Night. A new law was passed so police wear masks, and Keene uses the conflict between the cavalry and the cops to gain political power. In episode 1, 2019, this guy Will kills Judd, and Angela, Laurie, and Wade investigate. Meanwhile, it turns out that Dr. Manhattan is in Tulsa in human form as Cal. Keene and Cyclops capture him and try to take his power, but then trillionaire Lady True kills Cyclops to take Manhattan for herself, but then she's killed by squids. So, like in the original comic, the main heroes of the story are barely involved in saving the day. The point of Watchmen is exploring the lives and perspectives of these characters. So, what are the stories of Veidt, Will, Angela, Laurie, Wade, and Manhattan? Adrian Veidt was born super smart and ambitious. He idolized Alexander the Great and the Egyptian pharaohs, so he took the name Ozymandias and resolved to do great things. In the 50s, he fought crime as a hero, but he realized that punching criminals won't save the world. Veidt decided to prevent nuclear war. So he quit being a superhero and built a corporate empire, becoming rich and famous off electric cars like an 80s Elon Musk. In 85, he attacked New York with a squid to end war. He achieves world peace, but he kills 3 million people, leaving him feeling alienated from humanity. The TV show continues from there, so Veidt keeps raining squids down from the sky, keeping everyone scared to maintain world peace. Veidt influences politics, getting Redford elected in 92. And Veidt asks Redford to work with him to build a utopia, but Redford doesn't listen. Veidt loses his influence and popularity. He becomes reclusive, frustrated, and irrelevant. In 2008, Lady True turns up and says that she's his daughter, because it turns out, back in 85, one of Veidt's staff, called Bian, stole a semen sample from Veidt and impregnated herself and gave birth to True. True asks for Veidt's help and his money for her plan to save the world by capturing Dr. Manhattan, But Veidt is too proud and stubborn, and he rejects his daughter. The next year, Dr. Manhattan visits, and Veidt gives him a memory-blocking device. In return, Manhattan does a favor for Veidt. Manhattan describes the world he's created on Europa, a paradise inhabited by the kind and adoring Phillips and Crookshanks. Veidt feels so hopeless and defeated that he asks Manhattan to teleport him there. So Veidt lives on Europa for 8 years, and it sucks. Because the Phillips and Crookshanks have no purpose, no doubt, no identity, no sex. They're boring. It's like living in The Sims or in the Garden of Eden before sin. So Veidt makes a plan to escape Europa. Back in 2008, Lady True mentioned a probe she was sending to photograph Europa, which would arrive in 2013. So Veidt spends 4 years creating a message for the probe to see. He catapults Phillipses and Crookshankses out of the bubble of life and onto the surface of Europa to die so that he can use their corpses to spell out the words "Save me, daughter," so that True would see and save him. The way Veidt uses the corpses of his servants is a lot like the Black Freighter story from the original comic. In that story, a sailor is stuck on an island, so he uses his friends' corpses to build a raft and sail home. The comic compares Veidt's feelings with the sailor's guilt and alienation. Over the years, Veidt clashes with the Game Warden, who tries to stop Veidt escaping, but in the end, Veidt reveals that he wanted the Warden to try to stop him. Veidt finally kills the Warden with a horseshoe that Phillips tried to give him years ago. So it seems like this whole conflict was scripted, like the play that Veidt writes, and like that absurd trial where Crookshanks winks. Was Veidt really struggling to escape, or was this all theatre to keep himself busy till he could leave? Veidt needs drama and adversity to thrive, and he doesn't care if innocents die for his pride. True sees the message and sends a spaceship to rescue Veidt. She freezes him in golden carbonite for the journey, so Veidt kind of looks like yellow yolk within an egg-shaped ship, one of many references to eggs this season. Veidt arrives on Earth in about 2017. This meteor thing in a flashback is Veidt's spaceship landing. But True doesn't unfreeze Veidt right away. She's still angry that her dad rejected her. So she keeps Veidt as a statue in her garden for years, looking like one of his action figures, a monument to his vanity. True only thaws Veidt out in the season finale, because she wants him to see her plan succeed, to prove she can win without him. But just as True is about to steal Manhattan's godlike powers, Veidt is teleported to his base, and he sends a frozen squid shower to destroy True and half of Tulsa. So, once again, Veidt does something terrible to supposedly save the world. He kills his own daughter, who had just rescued him from space, to prevent her from getting Manhattan's power. But this time, he doesn't get away with it. Wade and Laurie arrest Veidt, so he'll finally be brought to justice for his squid attacks. Which sucks for him, but on the upside, he might finally get that recognition and attention that he so wanted. Ozymandias' story is a warning that too much vanity, ambition, and pride can separate you from humanity, as though marooned on a distant moon. Will's story stretches 100 years, from the genesis of superheroes to the present. Episode 1 starts in Tulsa, Oklahoma, 1921, with the Tulsa Race Riot. This was a real historical event where a mob of white people attacked a wealthy black community, killing many people and destroying the neighborhood. Young Will loses his home and family, but he escapes, like baby Superman out of Krypton. Later, Will comes to New York and becomes a cop, but the police are corrupt and racist, and Will's brutally attacked. So Will becomes Hooded Justice, the first hero in Watchmen. He saves a couple from being mugged, just like in the comic. But Will uses white makeup to hide his race, fearing that white America wouldn't accept a black vigilante. So it turns out the first superhero doesn't wear a costume to look cool, he wears a mask to survive in an unjust society, and the noose on his neck is from his near lynching. He inspires the whole tradition of heroes in Watchmen, but America thinks he's a white man, and never understands the real story of hooded justice. Peteypedia compares this to the iconic Western movie hero the Lone Ranger, who some speculate may have been inspired by the real-world black lawman Bass Reeves. It's an invitation to rethink the biases in the stories America tells about power, violence, and race. As in the comic, Will has a relationship with Nelson Gardner, aka Captain Metropolis, and Will joins his group, the Minutemen. In the background here, you can see Silhouette, Mothman, the Comedian, and the First Night Owl. Will uncovers a conspiracy by the KKK group Cyclops to use mind control against black people. Will asks Metropolis for help, but he doesn't want to get involved. The Minutemen just want publicity, some of which perpetuates racism. Will is fighting to protect a society that doesn't protect him, so Will is angry and frustrated, and his wife and son leave him. Will's son eventually has a daughter named Angela, so Will is Angela's grandfather. In 55, Will breaks up with Metropolis, quits the police, and disappears. In 74, Metropolis dies, and leaves all his money and his mansion to Will. Metropolis writes that he was wrong to not help Will, and says that of all the Minutemen, only Will was fighting against true evil. In 2009, Dr. Manhattan visits Will. Because Manhattan fell in love with Will's granddaughter Angela, and Manhattan knows that shit will go down, so he suggests an alliance between Will and Lady True to take down Cyclops. So, in episode 1, Will kills Cyclops member Judd Crawford, using the same mind control tech that Cyclops used back in New York. Lady True helps Will by grabbing him in a car, so Angela can't arrest him. And in the finale, True kills the leaders of Cyclops, after reading a letter written by Will about their crimes. So, 100 years after the Tulsa Massacre in New York, hooded justice finally gets justice. After a century of trauma, Will can start to heal his wounds, and to look to the future. He has a family now, with Angela. Will's story is about the long legacy of injustice, masks, and pain in America, and looks to the potential for justice and healing. Angela was born in Vietnam in the 70s. Lots of African Americans moved there after Vietnam became a state. In 87, Angela's parents were killed in a terrorist attack. She identified the culprit for the cops and got her first taste of justice from police work. She also idolized Sister Night, a badass movie superhero. So Angela grew up an orphan and became a cop in Vietnam. In 2009, she's alone and empty and grieving. Then this blue motherfucker turns up and says he's in love with her. Dr. Manhattan experiences the future and past all at once, so he's in love with Angela before he even meets her. Manhattan says that their love will end in tragedy, but all love ends in tragedy, so fuck it, they start a relationship. To hide the fact that Manhattan is a blue, all-powerful god, he takes the identity and appearance of a dead guy called Cal. After the random, tragic death of her parents, Angela finds it reassuring that Manhattan knows the future, but it can also be really annoying to have a boyfriend who knows everything and fears nothing. Manhattan's previous girlfriends complained of the same. So Manhattan decides to become more like a normal human for Angela. He gets Veidt to give him a device that blocks his memory. Manhattan stops using his powers because he doesn't remember he has them. He temporarily sacrifices his godhood for Angela. They get married, move to Tulsa, Angela joins the police, and they start a life together. But in 2016, the cavalry attack on White Night. A gunman almost kills Angela, but a failsafe in Manhattan's memory block kicks in, and he saves Angela by teleporting her attacker away. That's how Joe Keane finds out that Manhattan is in Tulsa, and starts planning to capture him. Dozens of police are killed on White Night, including Angela's police partner Doyle, so Angela and Cal adopt Doyle's children, Topher, Rosie, and Emma. After White Night, Angela pretends to quit the police and start a bakery, but secretly she takes the identity of Sister Night. She hides her pain behind a mask and fights for justice. Judd and Jane Crawford make friends with Angela and Cal, but only because the Crawfords and Keane are planning to betray and capture Manhattan. So the Crawfords are incredibly cold and manipulative. In 2019, Angela meets Will and experiences his memories and learns that she's part of his legacy of survivors and fighters and masks. Angela learns of the plot to capture Manhattan, so she removes his memory device and fights to protect him. Manhattan tells her that she can't save him, but she fights for him anyway. And Manhattan says that that's why he loves her, her determination and love in the face of the pain and adversity that she's faced. In the end, Angela loses Manhattan, just as she lost her parents. But before he died, Manhattan said that he could put his powers in an egg so that someone else could get his powers. Angela eats Manhattan's egg and tests to see if she can walk on water, and then the season ends. So, does Angela get Manhattan's godlike powers? Should she? The season explores how power can be misused by Veidt, Keen, True, and by Manhattan himself. But maybe, after her experiences, Angela has the right perspective to do some good. Angela Abar was named after an old movie called Abar the First Black Superman. Maybe Angela Abar is the hero the world needs. Or maybe Angela doesn't want to be a hero anymore after what she's been through. The ending is ambiguous. It's entirely in your hands. Dr. Manhattan was once an ordinary boy called John. In the 30s, he and his father fled Germany for an English manor. John saw the lord and lady of the manor having sex, and John stole an apple. This represents the Bible story of the forbidden fruit with Adam and Eve. The lord and lady give John a Bible and describe the story of Genesis, with God making the world. They ask John to create something beautiful. So, 50 years later, John, as Manhattan, creates life on Europa in the image of the lord and lady and their manor, because while Manhattan is godlike, he's not very original. In the original Watchmen, John and his father moved to New York, where his father was a watchmaker. John became a scientist, and in 1959 he suffered an accident that ripped his atoms apart. But, like a watchmaker, he reassembled himself and returned as Dr. Manhattan. In the TV show, Veidt writes a play called The Watchmaker's Son, which retells this story of Manhattan's genesis. Manhattan won the Vietnam War for America, which leads to Vietnamese nationalist terrorism, including the attack that killed Angela's parents. So, indirectly, Manhattan causes Angela to be orphaned. Manhattan has a relationship with Laurie, aka Silk Spectre, aka Agent Blake. In 85, Manhattan fucks off to Mars because he's sick of humans and their bullshit. But Laurie convinces Manhattan that human life is special because of its improbability, the thermodynamic miracle. At the end of the comic, Manhattan leaves Earth to create life elsewhere. So then in the show, Manhattan creates life on Europa. He creates Phillips and Crookshanks to be better than the humans of Earth, to be kind and gentle beings in a new Garden of Eden. But paradise gets boring, and after 20 years, Manhattan returns to Earth to meet his love, Angela. Manhattan visits Will and starts the alliance with Lady True to stop Cyclops. Manhattan does this knowing that it'll lead to his death, but Manhattan has experienced the future and he knows it's inevitable. Manhattan becomes Cal, blocks his memory, and spends 10 years with Angela until Angela makes him Manhattan again. In the finale, True destroys Manhattan, and as he dies, Manhattan experiences every moment he was with Angela all at once, and he dies telling her he loves her. So, the original comic explored how superhuman powers can be dehumanizing. A god wouldn't care about people. But Watchmen 2019 takes a different perspective, exploring how Manhattan's powers make him more human, an infinite god of infinite love. He experiences past, present, and future all at once, so he is forever an innocent child, a dying scientist, a god, a husband, and lover all at once. From his perspective outside time, not even death can end his love, 'cause nothing ever ends. The Bible stuff comes full circle as well, because Manhattan knowingly goes to his death, sacrificing himself like Christ, only for his power to be resurrected in Angela, walking on water like Jesus. So Manhattan was kind of useless in the original comic. Like Will says, he could have done more. Perhaps this sacrifice is the redemption of a god. Or, if nothing else, dude hangs dong.
Yeah, he hangs dong.
Laurie is the daughter of Sally Jupiter, aka Silk Spectre. Sally raised Laurie to be the second Silk Spectre, a glamorous, sexy superhero just like her mum. Laurie hooked up with Dr. Manhattan and retired from being a hero. But Manhattan's a shitty boyfriend, so Laurie leaves him and hooks up with Dan, aka Night Owl. Laurie and Dan fail to stop Ozymandias' plan, but they bond over rediscovering being heroes together. On Mars, Laurie finds out that her father is the comedian, the nihilistic brute who once tried to rape her mother. So Laurie is devastated and feels that her life is a cruel, meaningless joke. At the end of the comic, Laurie goes off into the sunset with Dan, planning to be heroes, but Laurie's attitude has changed. She wants a different costume, with a mask and a gun, just like the comedian's costume. So, in the new Watchmen, according to Peteypedia, Laurie started calling herself the comedian, after her father. Laurie and Dan worked as heroes for a while, but they broke up, because Dan wanted kids, while Laurie wanted guns. And Dan felt that Laurie was still in love with Dr. Manhattan, so he made her a giant blue dildo as a literal fuck you. The dildo, by the way, is named Excalibur. In the 90s, Laurie and Dan got arrested because heroes are still illegal. Dan refused to cooperate with the cops, so he's still in jail. Laurie keeps an owl in a cage as an ironic tribute to Night Owl. But Laurie made a deal with the cops to let her go free so long as she works for the FBI's anti-vigilante squad. So Laurie goes from a hero to a hero hunter. We see her ruthlessly gun a man down, and she takes her father's name, Blake. Laurie has embraced the comedian's dark legacy. Because Laurie is hurt by her fucked up origins, and by the feeling that Dr. Manhattan abandoned her. She hides this trauma behind a mask of cynicism. Like the comedian, she calls everything a joke and laughs at the injustice and absurdity of the world. When she gets captured by Cyclops, she says she doesn't care about their evil plan, that she's tired of all the silliness. But in the end, Laurie does care. Because Cyclops' plan is to kill Laurie's ex, Dr. Manhattan, and when Laurie sees him, she shows some real emotion for once. She still loves Manhattan, or at least is nostalgic for a time when she felt love. And later, Laurie sees Dan's old airship, Archie, and she shows some genuine awe and joy again. It's like Laurie's ex-boyfriends remind her of what it's like to let down the mask and to feel something real. So in the end, Laurie and Wade arrest Veidt. For 30 years, Laurie kept the secret that Veidt was behind the squid attack. But now she changes her mind and decides to bring some actual justice. People change, she says. I'm not joking, she says. Because now she's not being the cynical comedian. She's doing something she actually believes in to make the world better. So it's subtle, but Laurie's story takes her away from the cynicism of her father and towards some sincerity and hope. Wade is a new character in Watchmen. His story begins in 1985, the night of Veidt's squid attack. Wade is a Jehovah's Witness evangelizing at a carnival, under the shadow of imminent nuclear war. He meets some knot tops who are like a punk subculture from the comic, and a knot top seduces him, which is a challenge to Wade's religious faith. This temptation is a formative moment for young Wade. Like John taking the apple, like biblical original sin, Wade tries to grow beyond innocence, but the girl betrays him. And as if that wasn't enough humiliation, then the world fucking ends. The squid hits New York, sending a psychic shockwave that kills 3 million people. So this religious kid tries one time to get his watchtower wet, and the result is unimaginable horror. Wade is scarred, and grows up to be a damaged, lonely person. His relationship with an ex fails because he can't trust anyone, because when he was vulnerable before, he was shamed and traumatized. He's paranoid, hyper-vigilant for more squid attacks, so he lives in a bunker and wears a tinfoil hat. Wade runs a support group for survivors, and he says that he's no longer afraid, but that's a lie. Wade wears a mask to hide his pain. After White Knight, Wade became the hero Looking Glass, an expert at interrogation and detecting deception, which are the exact skills that could have helped him with the girl in 85. In 2019, Veidt goes out with a woman from his support group, but she turns out to be a Klansman who tricks Veidt into capture. So once again, when Veidt is emotionally vulnerable with someone, it just gets him another kick in the balls. Veidt finds out that the 85 squid attack, the catastrophe that broke him, was a hoax by Adrian Veidt. So Veidt questions his whole life. Is anything true? He asks. In the finale, Veidt goes deep into enemy territory and faces the man who caused his trauma, and Veidt arrests him with a spanner. Veidt finally gets justice, and he takes off his mask. He takes the first steps towards healing. So, in some ways, Watchmen 2019 is cynical. It's about racism, violence, and trauma. The utopian dreams of Adrian Veidt and Lady True fail. Dr. Manhattan, the god figure, dies. But the story also has hope. Will achieves justice and healing after centuries of injustice and pain. Angela gets godlike power, probably. Manhattan becomes a figure of transcendent love. Laurie achieves some optimism, and Veidt gets justice. We also got an entire season of Jeremy Irons eating cake and playing with catapults. So, Watchmen 2019 isn't about superheroes conquering evil, but it is about some people who find hope and healing despite the darkness. The main symbol of the original Watchmen comic is a bloody smiley. It appears all throughout the comic, because it represents how the idea of a hero is broken, outdated, and degraded. But Watchmen 2019 uses the symbol of an egg. Eggs appear all throughout the show. The season ends with an egg, because an egg is the opposite of the cynical, bloody smiley. Eggs represent rebirth, possibility, and life. 30 years after the original comic, this new show brings hope to Watchmen. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. They take a lot of work to make, so you're welcome to support on Patreon for updates, live streams, votes, and more. Thanks to patrons Rodney Gitzel, Hassan Gopalani, Mike Curry, James Butterworth, Veronica Van Cleve Seeley, and Sydney Cohen. Cheers.